Hello everyone, and a warm welcome to the second ChangeX event. I'm very excited for today, and I hope you guys are too. But before I start announcing the speaker of today, I'd like to ask you one thing. Grab your phone and scan the QR code that is going to be here on the screen. Because, as I also told in the first event, ChangeX is all about community, and in a community, we also have to learn from each other. And the best thing about this is that because we have all these digital things, we can also connect between the events and you can meet new people. So hopefully this QR code already showed up and then you could scan it. Oh, there it is. Great. So scan this QR code and become part of our community because we're going to organize a lot of other nice events online and offline. As soon as we can meet each other, we'll meet each other offline. But until then, join the Slack community and stay up to date to the newest dates and the newest events of ChangeX. So enough about that. It's time to announce the speaker of today, Humberto Schwab. I got to meet him already in an online meeting, and I was like, after the meeting, I was so excited about what he's going to tell us today. Because even in those 40 minutes that we spoke with him, he already convinced me that I really needed to change my thoughts. And also the other people of the ChangeX team, we thought the same. So I wish you a warm welcome, Humberto, and I'd love to hear what you have to say today.
Thank you for your introduction. And hello, everybody from Spain here, a small village near Figueros in the Dali area. And I'm going to talk with you about Socratic design. Socratic design, it's all in the word, is a Socratic something and it is a design something. So that's clear. And it helps us after a fatal analysis. So it's a quite painful start. And I hope you will forgive me it, but I want you to project it on yourself. So don't keep it outside you. What you hear, the fastest thing to work on it is to also apply it directly on yourself. So during this talk, you have to agree on everything I say, and afterwards you can disagree. That's the best way to learn. I was a teacher of physics and philosophy, and I always learn kids to first agree on what you hear, because then you can understand stuff, because they were accustomed to disagree at forehand. This is also a sort of misunderstanding of critical thinking. Well, we're going to talk about a philosophy, and I want to repeat it often. It's not economy stupid, it's philosophy stupid. And I hope that this, in the coming weeks, will also land in your minds. And we're going to talk about the Socratic design methodology, which has 9 steps, but we don't have time for treat all the 9 steps. But it is a philosophy on an analysis, and it is giving also the way out of the analysis of the fatal fallacies that we are living in. So basically, we discovered, and David Bohm was the first to mention this, that although we think that we are thinking, we basically are trapped in addictive thoughts. So the funny thing is, you have the experience you're thinking, but you basically are repeating the same thoughts over and over again. And these same thoughts, why can it that they can be addictive? Because drugs can be addictive, mobile phones can be addictive, screen can be addictive. How can thoughts be addictive? Well, because we don't think with our brain only what we learned, that was also a fallacy, but we think with our whole neurological system. So when you have a thought, you have active your muscles, your ears, your eyes, your internal organs, and some brain, and your verbal part of your brain, basically. We are used to use our left brain above all, sometimes only our left brain. The left brain is where words, calculations, and rational thinking is projected. Well, these brain circuits is nothing but an electric current that will close when a thought has been made. And the closing of a thought, the closing of a circuit, which is having a thought, gives directly a release of dopamine. It also can give serotonin, but it is above all dopamine, what is coming out of this. And this gives you the sensation of comfort, or you can say pleasure. So thoughts give us pleasure, which is, of course, very nice if you think about pleasant thoughts. But the point is that also horrible thoughts are addictive, because the system doesn't know which is a horrible thought of a pleasure thought. But in both sides, it's connected with our dopamine circuit, which is our, you could say, the lower part of our brain, where we produce these sorts of dopamine. And if you look at evolution, you can see that this was a very logical way of survival, because if there's coming a tiger, it is very important that you realize, take it and run. Get your stuff and run. And don't reflect on it. Is it brown? It has big claws. It has a big mouth. So what should it be? No, the addictive thought of the tiger is still helped us to survive all those 1,000 years. Now this way is blocking us, because we still use this tiger, but there are no tigers, at least not in Amsterdam on the streets. But there are thoughts. This is one of the, you could say, major fallacy system faults, we call it in physics, a major fallacy that we have. And it gets even stronger, because if you use only your left brain, the left brain has the inclination in believing what it thinks must be existing. And this was something that Nietzsche already called Hypostasierung. So you have something in your mind, and then you think that it exists. So people, for instance, think that they know what a tree is, and we always give them the exercise to watch the tree for an hour, and then they are shocked, finding out what a tree really is. But this is, you can say, the delusive influence of our left brain. But in our narrative, we believe that we can think. This is a very important way to attack our narrative, because we do a lot of intellectual or scientific or political or societal or academic thinking about problems, and basically this thinking is the problem. So the way we think is a specific way, is generating the problems, and then we think that we can solve it with the same thinking. So Einstein would say the thinking that produced these problems cannot be the same thinking that solves these problems. But again, we continue thinking because we think that is what is the only thing we can do, because we believe in this narrative. A second fallacy, which is really for everybody to recognize, is that we cannot listen. We suggest that we listen, but if you ask in your meeting, in your colleague, in your family, what did I just said? They will say, well, that I don't know, but I was listening. And this is connected with the first addictive thought, because we have a sort of narcissistic listening inclination. So we connect everything what's in our ear to what we already know, and the rest we don't hear. So this narcissistic listening causes a lot of, you can say, spoiled money, because all these hours of meeting, not listening, is horrible. But it also provokes a lot of frustration and conflict in our society. Because think about these addictive thoughts. Everybody has addictive thought, not listening to one another and screaming to get his addictive thought out aloud. You can have this on geopolitics, you can have it on politics, you can have it in your household, in your own room with your friends, all these different addictive thoughts fighting in debate, and it's very addictive. Like the thought of any thought can be addictive. The most addictive thought that we can have, basically, as David Bohm pointed out, is that German Dutch hood, Spanish nationality that exists. We say, I am Spanish, I am Dutch, I am German. Basically, it doesn't mean it is an addictive thought, but it takes a lot of, you can say, victims. Millions of people have died as a consequence of the belief of this addictive thought of nations. The narcissistic listening make this process, of course, worse. The third fallacy, which makes it the buildup where we are living in even worse, I can come with is the most important one. But like I said, we don't realize that we live in a narrative. We think that we live in reality. But basically, we live in a narrative that is not designed by God, not a product of evolution. We live in a design that's made by humans. And the humans made this construction mostly on the basis of philosophical assumptions. And these philosophical assumptions are the building blocks of our reality. So everything you say about reality, and I could test it, but we have no interactive camp. But if I would ask everybody, where is your I, your identity, your ego? Almost everybody would point at his left or at his brain or somewhere on his head. This is an assumption just started in the area of René Descartes, where we split the brain or the head or the ratio from the body. And in this model, the body is a machine. So you basically, although some of you don't know, you basically are mimicking, copying the philosophical assumption of the 16th century of the philosopher René Descartes, that our brain is our identity, it's pure and clear, and our body is a machine which we cannot trust. In this ego, this rational actor that we believe we are, we project our identity in our brain also. So that makes the things worse, because all thoughts that you have, you will protect like your identity. So that is really, you can say, impossible to change your thoughts. And that's also what people often say. You cannot change your thoughts because then you're not a fixed character. Well, this is all, you can say, legitimizing this addictive behavior. But I want to dive into some philosophical assumptions with you. And the first one is the rational separation of mind and body, which, of course, you can experience in yourself. So you can think, am I able to think with my heart? Do I feel in my heart? Do I feel in my stomach or in my muscles? Can I feel nerves outside my head who are reacting on situations? Most of you will never have done this. And some, yes. Some also from other cultures where this is normal. Another assumption, which is very important of this narrative where we are living in, is that we think that human beings are egoists. If I would ask you, 80 to 90% of you would confirm that human beings are egoists. Although some people have read the book of Richard Brechtman and who also plead for another model. But we think that humans are basically aggressive, egoists, searching for means to satisfy their needs. This thought comes from the philosopher Thomas Hobbes, and basically our whole buildup of states, justice system, police system is rooted in this assumption. And when you think this, when you reproduce this thought, we are rational egos and we mistrust each other, then you basically are giving space to Thomas Hobbes in your head. But you can say the sad thing, or the fallacy is saying, I think that human beings are egoists. Well, first, it's not the I that is thinking, because your whole body is thinking, and you don't think it because that has been put into you under education, where you didn't trust them, you were not trust, the teacher didn't trust you, and the government didn't trust you. So when you are 4 years old, you have to prove that you can be that intelligent so that you can go to high school or higher education or even to gymnasium or not. So this whole narrative is built on philosophical assumptions. And the assumptions that we are rational egos searching our satisfaction is also the basic thing of economics. And if this assumption is not true, and the other one also not true, that is what we try to experience with our, you can say, students, with people who participate as trainees in our programs, then we see over and over again that when you don't take these assumptions, then something new is possible. But it is very addictive. I repeat, a third level of assumptions. So we have philosophical assumptions, yeah? but we have not listening assumptions. But a third category of assumptions is installed in your mind, in your body, in your embodied mind, through your childhood, in your childhood. That can be very simple assumption, it can be dramatical, damaging assumption, or it can be very positive assumption. So we in Amsterdam, we have a mother told me that her daughter finished the study in English, and then she admitted to her mother that she never dared to study medicine or physics or biology because she said she was very stupid. And the mother said, "How do you come to that idea?" And the girl told that her teacher at college school, at grammar school, told her, "You are a lantern without a light." So basically, you are so stupid, it will never be something. And it can be one sentence, and it enters in the fragile body, embodied mind of a 4, 5, 6-year-old child, and it will be causing such a, you can say, reaction in the system that it releases a lot of dopamine, and this becomes so addictive that your whole life you kept this memory, which is very damaging for you. You kept this memory alive. This is the craziest thing you've ever heard, I think, but this is why you can explain why you don't get rid of this dirty, terrible, or damaging habits or thoughts, and some of them, which is very important to realize, are hidden in your unconsciousness. I give you the example. Why is it hidden? Because you don't want to know the pain who is repeating from 4 years old till 70. We see the President of the United States, the actual President of the United States, and maybe some people say he is acting as a child. Probably he is still fighting against his father who didn't recognize him, or the kids in the classroom who was bullying him. We know, and the so presumptions are inside us and outside us. So we know a terrible example of a client that was a lawyer in the Netherlands who came to St. Clement, this village, completely in burnout, only 27 years old. And what was the case? This young lawyer, this very talented lawyer, was always saying yes, being nice, being pleasing to all his colleagues. So he got all the work, everyone, every day again, and could not say the word no. And this, what we then do is analyze your narrative. So I advise you all to write your narrative from your earliest memories during this COVID time. So I advise you to use COVID as a reset. The Dutch elite want a reset in the Netherlands. It can start in this time of concentration. Then it's not lost time. You don't need to stick to the Netflix. You can write down your narrative and investigate what happened and what were the details that the child in you experienced, and which were the hidden secrets. Why is it hidden? I told you, you cannot bear the thought of this pain. So in the case of the lawyer, we tried to find out where did it came from that he completely burned himself out by helping the whole office except himself. He tried to write down his narrative, then this one, then this happens, and my mother did it, etc. But the school day kept completely empty. So I asked him, why is the school day empty? And he said, well, that was not very important. I don't know much about this. So we gave him the assignment with 2 bottles of wine from the village, lock up in the cabin for 2 days and to try to find the memory, what happened at school. And you do that by getting images, sensorial images, smells, movements, the interior of the building. And then he found out that every day in class, there was a big boy who said to him, tomorrow I'm going to attack you and don't tell everybody. And this was such a threat for the very fragile child that he has an immense fear built in. But to hide this, you can say, painful dopamine experience, he transformed that into I am nice to everybody. So every time that he was nice to everybody, basically he repeated the trauma. So you can find out what is in me repeating traumatic or bad or damaging assumptions. That can be the philosophical one. If you, for instance, I give you a simple example, if you would stop the assumption that we are rational ego, that we are embodied mind, and that people can communicate via their bodies, it gives you a whole other perspective in your business. Because if people are that way, that is other services, other desires than that when we are just rational beings. And which we are not. We see that in the COVID, when the Prime Minister said, you are all rational beings, so act rational. Well, nobody does it. So the narrative is crucial to get grip of your life. Because basically you are now living the life of Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, René Descartes, and so on and so on. Why not design your own life, your own purpose, and then afterwards design even your own business? Because you can only know what the purpose in your business is if you have a broad contact with yourself. The second way of having a sort of means of dealing with these 3 fallacies, these 3 fatal fallacies, is the art of listening. So the art of listening is try to not debate anymore. Try when people say something or you ask somebody a question, an important question, just try to repeat what the other said and ask the person, did you say this? If the person say, of course, you missed half of it, then you will say, can you say it again? And then the person will say it and you repeat it. Did I repeat it correctly? And the person say yes. At that moment, you ask, can you elaborate on that? So the person will elaborate on that. You will repeat it, will check if it's correct, and will again ask, will you elaborate on that? And all this time, you can do it for 1 hour. Sometimes we have done it for 3 hours with a CEO in front of his staff, and everybody discovered new things, and above all, he himself. But the point is, you are absolutely entering new thoughts because you are not repeating your own thoughts. And this is an important way of learning to get rid of your addictive thoughts. A second way, which you cannot do because that demands some training, is a collective, is a Socratic dialogue. In the Socratic dialogue, we do reinstall what for centuries had been the normal, you can say the normal way of communicating, and that is collective intelligence. Everybody talks about collective intelligence in think tanks and in startups and whatever, an incubator. But if you put people just together and let them meet and let them debate, nothing will come, like I told you. They keep to their standpoints, they keep not listening, and you have a very nice atmosphere of who's winning the debate and who has the loudest voice. So in order to get in a collective, a real, you can say, one collective attention, you need a disciplined dialogue. And that is what we do everywhere in the world. And it's always been successful, not because I, as a moderator, are doing something in the content. I only make them free of their addictive thought so that they can act as a communal body. Last week we were in Madeira for the Design Academy students of Eindhoven. They do a big project, 5 months doing research. And basically they were a little bit in turmoil because they were continuously debating. So they asked us to come there. We didn't find it very sad to go to Madeira, but it was amazing how we in 3 days got them into collective intelligence, and then free of their addictive thought they could produce. But the point is, again, it is a painful process to recognize, to acknowledge that you cannot think and mostly have thoughts of 18th century philosophers. Doesn't matter because Plato would be better, so time is not the issue, but acknowledge that you have philosophers in your system working and you thinking that you are thinking, and be dominated by your children traumas like Donald Trump, or even I read a newspaper in the Guardian that Boris Johnson is pleasing everybody because he was never given any attention as a child. So you can see that the whole country is suffering from the baby in the big body. So we have to get rid of it, but it gives us a lot of perspectives. So innovation is very difficult because all the innovative labs from the past 30 years didn't give a lot of new innovation except new technologies like a smartphone, smart cars, smart houses, smart cities, but not very wise, I can say. So is it well so wise to start a smart city when you do not reconsider our culture? And if we want to really innovate, we have to build new narratives, but not by just sitting together and debate, but sitting together and form a collective attention, a collective intelligence. And then we should get rid, to give you an example, we should get rid of the idea, in the Netherlands very popular, that we are all very unique, original thinkers. This is one of the main cause of the total blockage of real development. Because if you got 4 intelligent people around the table, nobody wants to listen. Everybody is addicted to his own thoughts, learned just in studies or in books, and not created in a collectiveness. So all these think tanks, we can stop it if they not start reflecting on the thinking process. But again, David Bohm said, the thinking that produces all these problems, that cannot continue. So the thinking itself is the problem. Well, but at the one hand, it's very painful. On the other hand, it's very, you can say, perspectiveful, enrichment, how you can get rid of chapter 1 of your life, or how we can stop the coal and steel thinking of the past 300 years. And maybe we can start thinking, oh, let's stop this focus on original I and ego-ness, because it's a fake. You are not unique because we all have the same thoughts and we only use the left brain part. So all this, what is in the right brain, what's in the heart, what is in the stomach. You have cultures like in Spain, they use more the heart and the brain than Dutch do. You can see that. But we can change that overnight. We can sit together and in this audience now, we can all go back into our assumptions and say, let's stop it and try to create it. But the difficulty is the narrative is also outside us. So we have to design other outsides. Because now, well, you can see it. We have locks everywhere. Nobody trusts anybody. We have police. We have laws, we have possession. You are basically forced to go to buy a house because otherwise you are not a a real citizen. You need a loan. You need to before you die to own a house. That's a sort of basic point of the narrative. But all these assumptions are in our environment. So also the school, if I ask you, what are the assumptions that you got from school, then you can a lot of you can say depreciating negative anti-motivative assumptions about learning. So most people say, I do not learning anymore, I did that at school. What if we change this narrative and discover that learning probably is one of the highest achievements for a human being? So I told you about this dopamine system, which is sugar, addictive thoughts, all this Christmas translated into eating. If you look at the commercials for kids, it's all about eating. What if we realize again, and the Stoics, Plato, all those philosophers knew this, why are we not focus our eye into another part of our mind, and that is the prefrontal neocortex. In the prefrontal neocortex, there is our reflective, you can say, awareness, where we can watch our thinking process. So you can start using this neocortex by watching your thoughts and then think, oh, I am thinking again this. Oh, I am thinking again that I cannot do this. Oh, I'm thinking that I'm stupid. There goes the thought again. When you watch this thought, you can ask yourself, do I want to think this? And this can be a revolution in your life story, because then you level up to the neocortex. You're not dependent on dopamine. No, you will be exercise serotonin, which means it's not that addictive, but it gives you contentment. And most people who do complex studies or complex things like artists or craftsmen, they do this and they don't need a reward, because the doing itself is their contentment life. So this is a completely different narrative, but we can do it if we start to project, to investigate ourselves first. So what I would advise you as young startups, to not be depressive about the COVID situation, but see it as the last parts of an old story that didn't basically has any potential for the future. It worked for the 18th, 19th century. It worked for the industrial Ford fabrics, but all those assumptions we have to get rid of. And when you discover in your painful own narrative, your, you can say, assumptions that blocks you, but you have to do some research, because you don't know where they are wired in your system, and they can be hidden in your stomach or hidden in your muscle somewhere. But when you found in this narrative, wow, I do always this because, and then it gives you the free exploration space to go there and experience the whole other way of becoming a human being. And this word being is the key target for all my work. People are running, people are, you can calculating, always living in the future, but they don't know what it means to be a being. When you experience this, you will be content. You are not, you can be not victim for dopamine economies, dopamine structures. And the future is for, you can say, valuable things for our collective intelligence, but also, and this I'm not going to dwell on because it's a very complex next chapter, but recognize that our inner world is not something subjective of you, but we all share our inner world. And this could be a whole new area of, you can say, attention, development, and above all, meaningful lives. So the whole isolation of people in standalones and then waiting for all sorts of subventions or some subsidies from the government is killing us. We need to be as collective creating meaning in this, you can say, philosophical platform, what we can call the Socratic design. So I hope you got something of it. I think it's a lot of information, but at least I hope you get some idea how you can reflect on your own life story.
Great to hear, Humberto. So much information, but so interesting. And I think a lot of people actually thought this because we got quite some questions on the chat. So are you ready for the Q&A?
Yes.
Great. So let's start with the first question. This question is from Boss. And he's actually asking, what was your own life-changing memory or life-changing experience?
Well, it's a very good question. Well, I was, of course, I was born in 1953, and I was basically Catholic, raised Catholic, which I'm still grateful for because it was a very strong community sense, even if you leave out the whole thing of God and nasty priest, there was a good moral community in this Catholic district in The Hague. But then I discovered that I did not fit the heterosexual norm, so I had to deal with that. But it was so strong that it was not possible to get rid of that norm. So you had to force yourself into that thing. But if you would go to the other one, which is the homosexual, I didn't like that dark bars and cafes in Rotterdam. That was even more horrible. So it was something that made me, for the first time in my life, realize I'm not going to do this to assumption that society gives me, and invented a new one. So that was basically my most important decision, and I took that when I was 15. And a lot of people since then I know who have committed suicide in equal circumstances in that area or in the ages before, but even till now, if we look at the book of a recent author about his coming out just 5 years ago. But in philosophy, and that's why I love philosophy, we see that Foucault explained to us that this whole sexual thing of heterosexuality and homosexuality is the invention of a very stupid narrative. But people feel obliged to say, I'm this or that. But basically, we are exercising a discipline control on ourselves. So that was a first answer to my own narrative. It was a crucial thing for my narrative. And I invented a new way of thinking about relations, intimacy. And when I studied in Utrecht, it was 1971, and it was a lucky time because everybody could experiment. And you had then the gay movement and the gay bars. And you had, of course, heterosexual bars. And we started parties where we did men, jongen, meisje, jongen. Dus every sort of thing, and you could switch at every moment that you want. So nobody got a etiquette from this is what you are. And since then, I studied the work of Foucault, and he basically gave later the broad theory that homosexuality started in the 18th century as a sickness invented by psychiatry. Well, that is an example of a personal experience and how philosophy helps you.
Okay, so can I ask you a follow-up question on that? Because I can really see this as a life-changing experience, especially if you look at the circumstances where you grew up in. Are there some situations nowadays that you still feel this when you were just 15, like what you went through then? Do you still see it in situations nowadays? And you reflect upon that? You were like, oh, I react because I was 15 and I went through this.
Yeah, well, in a positive way, because I was so taking distance of all this, you can say, chaos, because that was this you can say this how do I call it? So totally destructive environment for such a young adolescent. But what saved my life was a friendship, and I told that, and that's what I always said to my students. Take good friends into confidence. And I told a friend that, and he completely agreed in saying, let's start a new way of how you see these things. So what I still have basically from that moment is that I'm very strong in ignoring, you could say, oppressive systems or situations. I never accept that anymore. That's what you can say as a sort of remembrance. And I feel, and I always, and I always help. When I was a teacher, I helped young students to think about differently, because they have a fear of coming out, because then you have to go cross that line. I said, you don't need to do that. It is something intimate, and you cannot be gay. You cannot be homosexual. It's an addictive thought. So that's very. If you say, do you still see that? I see now. You can say a regression, so that it's even stronger that people fall in this sort of categories, this identity thing. And I think that the future is that we get rid of it. That we say you cannot make generalization nor in color, nor in identity, nor in this, etc., etc. We should have other meaning systems.
Yes. So you created the Socratic Design Academy. What you just told, did that also influence the decision to create this academy?
Well, you can say that all my experience in education, so I advised also the Minister of Education in the Netherlands to introduce philosophy at school so that young people could think for themselves and not reproduce the thought of the teacher. And all that way, I discovered more and more the addictive system, so that you can, a school, for instance, it's almost impossible to change things. Happily, I'm now a member of the jury of the Minister of Education in the Netherlands to judge excellent schools, and you see some schools who can make it, but this is really a decision that you have to make collectively. But what I discovered is that there are so many philosophical potential good ideas, they never reach people, and people are, you can say, taking so much difficult wrong decisions on wrong assumptions about themselves. To bring that together, that I did with students during my educational career, and that's what the reason that I developed this methodology. And I began to apply it in the 80s on helping business to develop new business models, business plans, or new cultures. And it went so amazingly strong, because basically what I told you today, that is for businessmen, students, or people in poor districts or villages alike. So everybody can enrich his purpose and his values by realizing, my God, where do I come from?
Yeah, actually, so it is for everyone.
Exactly. And
so I have another follow-up question on this, because, oh, sorry. We have the people who are watching, there's a little bit of delay between what we're saying and what other people are saying, so we have a little bit of delay. But I have this question for Albert, and I actually think this really fits what you're telling right now, because you say it is applicable to everyone. I mean, if you're a businesswoman or you're a student or whatever. But it also causes a lot of effort to change your thoughts, I believe so. And that's why Albert also asked this question. How do you actually escape the Netflix binge to start self-reflection? I often have the intention to work on my development, but I never seem to get around to doing it. So how do you actually escape the binge? Start self-reflection. Where do you start?
Yeah, well, it's a very good question. And well, the easiest way, and it's not an advertisement, but I help CEOs in dialogue to get them awareness of their way of their acting now due to their child's, you can say, traumas, child experience, child events. And always it's the same. So that you can do also with a friend or a colleague or somebody maybe at random, and we do that in Amsterdam. So I one of my biggest clients now is the city of Amsterdam, and there is a department which is the innovation department, and get all the 120 innovative civil servant people, which a lot of young people, all very, very young, talented people, but still, youngness doesn't mean that you don't suffer this. But they are all now into narrative analysis with each other. So the one writes his story and the other asks clarification. And only that already gives you this distant questioning of somebody, gives you the possibility to see your life and say, wow, what was really going there, or what was underneath there. And the secret lies, you can also do it in yourself. And then you can buy a book like How to Overcome Your Childhood from the School of Life from Alain de Botton. You can also write it yourself and find out, where did it painful in my body when I write this, or what really connects to me. If you start and you're young, at the other end of your life, at the first 4, 5, 6 years, and at the same time you watch yourself in the here and now, and you will see a really strong connection. Wow, that's why I do this. That's why I always scream to everybody, because nobody would listen to me at home, for instance. And why is this so important? Because if you get rid of this dopamine, you come to your being, and there lies your wisdom to develop any purpose in business for you. So we had a businesswoman who had 3 big businesses in China, Turkey, and Mexico. And she came here in the village and she discovered, this is nothing to do with me. But how did I develop this? So a lot of people are in businesses, basically, this sounds very weird, winning a lot of money on their deviance, on their traumatic defense systems, but they can never enjoy it because it is the painful addiction that is repeated. So in order to become a happy business young man or woman, do first this on yourself, and then you will find, wow, I find a purpose in life, and that can be X, Y, or Z, and then I build a business around that. And a business is basically contributing to society from your deepest being.
Instead of the other way around, looking what makes money and then try to find a purpose in that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
So
don't look for work. There is no work. Make something from your deepest. We call it the diaphragm, the midriff in Dutch. Make that you can feel that, and if you make things from that, there's always people who want that from you.
that there are some wise words, and I think because we also have a lot of young professionals listening, struggling, what should I do? What is my purpose? I hope it also strengthens you, the people that are listening to this. Actually, I heard this and thought like, okay, this is something I take home with me. So if we look a little bit more to the questions, because you also talked a lot about childhood, and this is a question from Joachim, and he's asking, how does knowing about your childhood narrative help you in eliminating the assumptions that hold you back?
Yes, this is of course the key question. But if you go in your childhood, so you work on both sides. So you can analyze yourself, or you can ask people, how do you think who I am? And then people will say, you are always timid, or you never try to fight, or you always fight, or you think you're stupid, you never dare to, or you don't have confidence. And you work on your child story, then you will see that your unconsciousness gives you more and more information, which is important. And again, just try to write literally what happens a day at your young life. And then you feel, wow, this was really painful. I give you a simple example. There was a CFO of a digital company, and he never could do something for himself. So he would always do everything for other people. And he didn't know why, but he could not even keep the sunglasses for him if there was sun and somebody else didn't. He gave it to the person. And he discovered that it was one event when he left his sister behind because he wanted to play football with his boyfriend, and the sister got lost in the wood, and the whole village was in panic. And he was so shocked that he felt guilty that his sister was almost killed. And he never remembered this because this was too painful. But at the same time, he never dared to do something for himself. So this is the very simple, but sometimes this is also very horrible. And it can vary. One student of mine told me she always wears trousers because somebody told her, what do you have strange legs? And she was 5. And still now she's a woman of 30, still doesn't wear anything but trousers. So it can be very small, very stupid, and a lot of stuff happens at school because that's where we were most of the time. But you can also have been a very severe education or even a very liberal education, but then you can also have strange thoughts in your mind. So
yes, everybody has them, right?
Yeah. So how do you get your assumption? Connect that very early thing. When you're reading it and reading it over and over again, then you can add details, and the details will, at a certain moment, connect with not with your rational intelligence of the left brain, but with your embodied intelligence. So you will feel, wow, this is painful, and you can even feel that you have to cry. Nietzsche also said always, pain is the route to follow. If you avoid pain, which most people do, pain from their youth, painful memories, if you avoid pain, you will be the victim, but in a disguised form of the pain. So better follow the route of the pain, and you will be free of it. Sounds very logically, but it is difficult to do. And people feel also nowadays, why do I feel sometimes sad, or why do I have this distressing feeling? Or you can analyze your behavior. Why do I always need to go to a bar, 4 people every night, and Saturday drink me almost in coma? Why is that? Well, probably very simple, that you cannot stay alone. So the COVID time for a lot of people is hard because it faces you with your own being. But I would say it is an opportunity to investigate yourself, and not only yourself, because, and here comes a secret sentence, which I give you, the whole culture is folded in you. And so when you unfold yourself, then you learn the whole culture. So you will become powerful because knowledge is power. And then you will discover, wow, that's the way it is. I'm not going this, and this. I'm going to that really value, purpose driven design. And that is why we call it Socratic design. So you can make, with this painful experience and with this philosophical assumption, you can find good futures. And we need this, we said, as a world, as a country, because the old one is a dopamine culture, which only demanded more. So we're going to make not plastic, but we're going to make plastic that can be in nature absorbed. It is not a solution. We should have completely a different way of interpreting our good life. So the final definition where everybody should focus on, what is a good life for a human being? And that is also what business is focusing on. So business basically gives people a service how to meaningful do your life. But in order to be that in that position, you have to think for yourself, what is a good life? Is a good life 9 to 5 work, always overloaded and dying? Nobody at your grave will say he has a lot of meetings. So what do you want?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want
Sorry,
to
I'm just
do
laughing
before?
Yeah, exactly, because everybody is living this 9 to 5 life, right? No, but I think this is very interesting because what you're saying is the thing I think everybody is doubting about, and we're all living the lives we're supposed to be, and it doesn't matter what age you have, probably you're always struggling with who am I and what does society want, and then you want to be yourself, but how much of these thoughts are yours and how much is based on culture. So there's also a lot of self-reflection that is needed by this. That's actually what I learned. And there's one question from Albert, which I think is really, really good. Because is there any risks in diving so deep into your own thoughts? Because he can imagine getting lost. What can you say about that, Humberto?
That's a very good one. You should go, if you did, well, basically, you can do it with somebody. Yeah? But if you have a lot of fear of going, the best reason to do it. And then you can go step by step. And also at the end of the game, we have psychotherapy. Yeah? But that's not a bad thing. So they always are there to help you if that's that serious. But the point is of this Socratic design, do it when you are healthy so you can face everything. You're not sick, you're not weak, you think it's an assumption, or you think that it will be horrible. But go into this narrative, and the point is, that is what I really, because I have done thousands of students also in this design, so it's not scientifically proven, but I have never seen somebody falling into this in a black hole. I've seen people on the other side getting rid of Ritalin and Prozac and discovering, wow, these are also, narratives that doesn't fit. But when you go into your narrative, observing your dopamine system, you don't have an I, like they told you, you have more a we. So you use your we, you use your neo-frontal cortex to observe yourself, and that's such a secure place. So that's the place where the soul rests. So basically, when you have fear of it going wrong, then you should, as soon as possible, do that voyage and dive in it, and at least have a good friend watch you. But crying for days or weeks, I've done it, it's not that bad. There's nothing wrong with crying. And there's nothing wrong with
that's also a
the
thing
wrong
we
thing,
believe, right? It's a thing that we
yes,
sometimes believe, that crying is wrong. That,
I think it's the
but it's not.
most healthiest way, yeah. But some people don't,
Exactly.
they start also, then they already get some tears. I said, if you want to cry like a child, go to the steam room, but there are all tears around you, so it will get easier to cry. I did it when I was a student, and it is sometimes, think about it, a child gets so many images, has so many fantasy. The more sensitive you are, the more intelligent you are, the more things you make up as a child, and you have to get rid of it. You have to say to your child, it's okay, but you can cry now, but tomorrow we're going to play football. Doesn't matter. So
Exactly.
don't see yourself as a I, because the I that they told you is, again, only the left part of your brain, which is a very small part. You have a corpus callosum, you have the amygdala, you have a right brain, you have a stomach, you have a heart. Above all, I would suggest try to put yourself in the heart. So people don't know that. They think it's a pump. It's not a pump. It's not a valve. It is one of the most intelligent things in your whole system. So if you've never done it, try to focus what happened when I project myself in my heart and let the brain, okay, that's Thomas Hobbes. So my thoughts is not my I. So you can just copy thoughts of other people. So an exercise would be agree with everybody around you and always repeat his thoughts. And then you say, wow, that's nice. You see what I mean?
Yes, exactly. I think this is a beautiful way to end this Q&A, because we're already past the time. We have a lot of questions left, actually. And actually, I would propose to you, Humberto, if you're okay with it, if we can send you these questions, and you can enter them, and then we can
Always.
distribute them through our Slack channel. Yes, great.
Always.
So
Yes.
for people
We
who want
always
to
help
know more
people.
about you, yeah. So the people who want to know more about you, they can probably also find you on LinkedIn, and you have a website. So I think that's also a great way if people have other questions to contact Humberto.
Yeah. Yeah. We have the Socratic Design Academy.com, and we have a YouTube channel, Socratic Design, where we do a lot of video talks from the last let's say 10 years. We also organize some TED Talks here in the smallest village, the smallest TEDx ever been held here in Perelada. So we try to communicate that way also to help people to think. But if people have questions, you can always send in any question to us, and Miguel and I will answer it.
That's so great to hear. Humberto, I really want to thank you for your interesting story today. I hope a lot of people learned a lot. I saw a lot of positive reactions on the chat. People said that you really opened their eyes, and that I really think this talk was already a life-changing experience for a lot of people. So thank you so much for that. For the other people that are watching, of course, this is not the only event we're organizing. We also organize an event in January because, of course, new year, new me. That's what we always say. And we have these New Year's resolutions. How do we actually do this? So maybe one New Year's resolution could be that you want to change your behavior, right? So because you joined this event, we will also invite you for the next event. And this one will also be nice. So you can combine your knowledge that you learned today with actually getting to change yourself. And Joan Hoeksem, we met her yesterday. She's very inspiring and also a great speaker, neuro-linguistic program expert. I would also recommend you to join that. So now I want to thank you all for joining today. I hope you had a lot of fun, and hopefully see you at the next event. And if you didn't do it yet, join our Slack community because you really want to become a part of ChangeX online and offline. See you later.